It's time for the Full Press Hockey Podcast with Jim Biringer and Bruce Zeman.
Shoots! He scores!
And now, with a trip around the National Hockey League, here's Jim and Bruce.
Welcome back to the best damn pregame show in the business. The only place to get your hockey coverage. Full Press Hockey Weekly Show. Sponsored by, presented by Betalytics. Don't forget to use the promo code FPH24, 25% off. Monthly, yearly subscriptions. Euros are going on. We're hitting winners in the Stanley Cup final left and right. I'm your host, Jim Biringer. The trio's back together. Legendary man, the Hall of Fame broadcaster, Bruce Zeman. You hear him on the Full Press Hockey Podcast with myself. Go check that out. Chris Wassel is here as well, the other man. And we got to talk about Connor McDavid and what he did. Boys, Game 6 tonight. Bruce, you called it the last time you were on the show. Way to go, man.
I get lucky every once in a while. Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Absolutely. We are here. Game 6, Stanley Cup final. The Edmonton Oilers take Game 5, 5-3. And we got to start. Connor McDavid, he wrapped it up. Just give him the trophy, win or lose. The Conn Smythe Trophy playoff MVP goes to Connor McDavid. 8 points in the last 2 games. He's got 11 points in the final. 42 points in the Stanley Cup playoffs is ridiculous. 34 assists. He's breaking all kinds of records that we didn't think would be broken. Closing in on another Gretzky record, the Lemieux point totals. What can we say about Connor McDavid except he's just willing this team to Game 6 and potentially Game 7. He backed up his words after Game 4.
No, he did, no doubt about it. He does have a long way to go to break one sort of fun record, and that would be the Rick Leach goal per game record in the 76 playoffs. That actually was the last time a Conn Smythe winner was awarded to the losing team, where the losing team did not win in, say, 7. Philly was swept. Philly was swept that year.
By Montreal, and that was
Montreal. People forget
that team was loaded. Here's
the scary part. Philly wins the Stanley Cup that year, if not for, I don't know, he was maybe about 22 inches tall then, maybe 24. You know, he was like a little like infant baby injury ninja that magically, poor Bernie Perrant got injured midway through the playoffs, and the Flyers just were, well, actually, Perrant was injured before the playoffs. He tried to play through it. After about midway through, it just became apparent there was no way he could anymore. Cue Wayne Stevenson. Yeah, those for Flyers lore. One of the craziest series you'll ever see. If you want to know how Toronto is cursed, look at the 76 semis with Toronto. Leach scores 5 goals in a game. That's just think about how the mid 70s were, and for a guy to score 5 goals, then you have to be pretty bad. And then there's your sign. So since then, really, your Game 7 losers that have gone on to win Conn Smythes, some other guy from Philly, some Hamburglar perhaps, Hextall in 87, and then in 2003.
Yeah.
Don't read the Michael Russo piece on Jaguar. Get a real I'm going to go there. Get an actual Conn Smythe winner, not one who needs a fluke bounce in order to win the Conn Smythe.
Or it was given to him, and we all can agree it was given to him after 2 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and once Anaheim got to the Stanley Cup final, because
you got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, we all know who really won the Conn Smythe Trophy that year. So a guy wears 30 in the Hall of Fame, numbers retired, something like that, I think. So, but Bruce, I mean, what McDavid is doing is historic, and the fact that we're witnessing this is unbelievable.
I think you're both right. Watching this playoff season has been just amazing. And, we talked about this in the last show. Just watching him put the Oilers on his back and get them to this point, it's been pretty magical. I was 2 or 3 years old in the early 70s, and just getting to see, stuff like this. People that, are, lukewarm hockey fans or don't watch all the time, you may not realize that this doesn't happen all that often, and when you can watch a playoff series and just wonder like when he's going to do something fantastic. It's pretty amazing to see what a generational talent he is. And boy, if they were able to pull this out, this is something we'll be telling our grandkids about.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that this Oilers team down 3-0, they're the second team, first since the 2012 Devils, to force a Game 6 down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final. But it feels like all the momentum's with the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, again, Connor McDavid, the Oilers, Stuart Skinner's playing well. In Game 5, he made 2 big saves early to change this game. One on Sam Reinhart, the other on Aaron Ekblad, Connor Brown, another shorthanded goal. And look, the Florida Panthers power play has just not been cohesive. Look, Edmonton's penalty kill is the best in the Stanley Cup playoffs, continues to be. And they've made changes. Florida, they moved OEL up on the top unit, took Montour off. They're trying to make some changes here. Opozo's out on the lineup. They're bringing Nick Cousins back in. Florida's got to make some changes because they're feeling the pressure. I mean, you had 2 chances to close it out. Okay, first game, all right, we chalk it up. You knew Edmonton was going to play, but it was inexcusable how they started in Game 5 for the Florida Panthers. And yes, they were able to build some momentum in the third period. They get it within 1, but you got to hope that if you're the Florida Panthers, you can do what Edmonton's been doing after their Game 3 third period where they were able to take over the series. Because, we've talked about it. If you're Florida for Game 6 and you get out of the first period tied or even down a goal, that's a win. You can't go be down 2 goals or 3 goals going into the second period in Game 6 because everybody then knows this series is going back 7.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, we've said this from the start of the playoffs. Said this from the start of last year's playoffs. Maybe even 2 playoffs ago. Edmonton excels best when they play downhill hockey. It's what fueled a couple teams this year and last year to these look, Devils the last year, Vancouver this year. Kind of the same way. Downhill hockey, don't necessarily give up a lot of scoring chances normally. Game 5 was a little bit different because yes, Stuart Skinner saw 32 shots and saw a lot of quality, particularly early and late in the game. The difference with Edmonton is, again, we've said it before, it's special teams. It's ridiculous. And they do make subtle adjustments during games. I don't think people often realize it. We thought maybe the one team that could break that down a little bit was Florida because of their relentless nature and how much of a machine they are, but it hasn't made a difference. Again, the common denominator is, and I can't believe I have to say this, but it's true, it's Stuart Skinner's penalty kill save percentage, which is borderline insanity. I mean, I don't think we're going to see something like this for a while, where a team goes on this kind of run, a penalty kill, and it's not lip service. This is really like a sustained enough run that you have to sit there and go, "Wow."
It's ridiculous what Stuart Skinner is doing. I mean, and even what the Oilers have done since Game 3 on, I believe they're like 10-1 in the playoffs from Game 3s on. This year, Stuart Skinner's just continuously playing lights out. I mean, the fact is, in games 4 through 7, I'm looking this up courtesy of Sportsnet stats, 9-0,
Yep.
1.5 goals against average, 938 save percentage with 1 shutout. Bruce, that's winning you hockey games.
Well, it's not only winning you hockey games, it's winning you series. And it goes to show how Edmonton made some adjustments earlier in the series when it wasn't working. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but when Florida was up 3-0, I said to myself, one of 2 things is going to happen. In Game 4, Connor McDavid, who we all agree is the best player in the world, is going to go on just a maddening run, which is exactly what's happened. They've made all these changes. They've made all these adjustments. And when I was watching Game 5, I was talking to you guys about this yesterday. As soon as they scored that shorthanded goal, to open the game, I said to myself, this is not going to end well for Florida, just because not only did they score the shorty, but the way Florida did not respond right away until the last couple of minutes of the second period, and then they had the third period. But the storylines, if you think about what's going to happen tonight potentially, if Keith Tkachuk, the Panthers captain,
Matthew Tkachuk.
Sorry,
Yeah.
if
Does not summon his father and eat,
Yeah.
I am
a tray of lasagna.
I'm channeling his dad. If he's able to bring this home and settle this team down, he'll start to cement his legacy as a great captain, because that's what great captains do. Because I would imagine there's probably a significant amount of turmoil in that locker room right now, because you do not want to be on the end of potentially the greatest collapse in sports history. But I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I don't know. I was talking to some folks this morning. I don't know of any pundit that I've talked to that doesn't think this is going back to Florida for Game 7. I haven't seen anybody think that Florida is going to pull this out. I could be wrong, but to me, this just has the makings of Connor McDavid having a goal and 5 assists in a 7-1 blowout.
I mean, look, we talked about it. I was talking with a lot of people. Was it Tuesday night now? Yeah, Tuesday night after Game 5, and we were saying just book your flight back to Florida, because there's no way anybody thinks that the Edmonton Oilers are going to allow the Florida Panthers to come back into their barn and win the Stanley Cup on their home ice. The last time the Oilers lost the cup on their home ice is when they got swept by the New York Islanders, and that was back in the 80s. So that was the 4 straight for the Islanders. So I think there's a good bet we could see Game 7. And then, as we said, now when everybody says something, it usually goes the other way. But the way Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers are playing right now, I don't know if that's possible. Now, look, the cup will be awarded one way or the other. Like we said, McDavid's the Conn Smythe Trophy winner regardless. But still, you look at it, Florida has to settle things down. They have to start playing better hockey. They got to get back to their structure. But the problem is, this is what happens when this structure goes out the window. We saw it in 2001 when Colorado beat New Jersey. This is how you break this defensive system. You play north-south hockey, come with speed through the middle, and that's what they're doing. I mean, Janmark, Brown, Henrique, that line has been killing the Florida Panthers right now. We know what McDavid's doing. We know Draisaitl's not even close to 100% healthy. Kane's not even a lineup, but Corey Perry, yeah, he's not playing well right now. I mean, considering what happened. But the fact that his hit on Barkov has changed this series, because Barkov's not the same player he was. Even though he had that monster Game 3, the last 2 games he's been not noticeable at all. The Edmonton Oilers are picking up their physicality. Again, if Stuart Skinner is going to continue to play like he is, look out. The Oilers can send this back to Florida for Game 7. And then, as we've said on the show how many times, anything happens in Game 7.
Can't believe we're here, but we're here.
Do we think?
I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, Jim.
No, go ahead, guys.
All right, so here's the fun thing in all this. So you think about like the astronomical odds that it would take for this to go just to a Game 7. It's mind-boggling. Like, I don't know. Somebody could have made a whole bunch of money on this. I don't know. I'm disappointed in myself for not thinking about this myself. Look, I even kind of sold my soul in Game 4 with some of my picks. So I started picking Edmonton Oilers to score random anytime goals, and they
did.
Scored. That was pretty scary, especially the Janmark shorthanded goal, which paid out at a cool plus 1250 because it was a shorthanded goal. So you got a 50% profit boost on top of another profit boost, and then the plus 800 for the anytime goal. But that being said, often the key points in any series that has seen this kind of inflection point or turn is often, when is the next one coming? And it's always in the back of your head with Edmonton. When are the Oilers going to oil? Or do they? I mean, is this finally the time where like Edmonton figures this out in the most critical moment of need that they actually can do this? And I don't want to say it because, again, um, hockey writers have probably more superstitions than the hockey players do at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey players just want to go out and play. The game 6 is like go out and play. That's it. Game 7 is when all the nerves are going to, everything's just going to come in all at once. But right now, again, it comes down to simplicity at this point. And right now, Edmonton's system is more simple, more straightforward. Florida knows what's coming. They just can't stop it.
No, they can't stop it.
That's 100% right. And you could see the change. But I want to throw something out to you guys because this was something I was thinking about this morning. Two things, actually. So we talked about Connor McDavid winning the Conn Smythe, right? If Florida is able to come up with a 2-1 win tonight, and Bobrovsky stands on his head, makes 40 saves, does that change anything for you guys? And number two, if Edmonton wins tonight, and then the series goes back to Florida, and Florida is able to win this in 7 games, are there questions for the Oilers as to why they were not ready in the first 3 games?
All right, so I'm going to start with the first one. It's McDavid's trophy no matter what happens. I don't care if Bobrovsky stands on his head with 40 saves. If McDavid has another game and they come up short, it's Connor McDavid. As far as the second half of that question, I think those questions could be asked because of what happened in game 2 for the Oilers, because in game 1 they got out-goalied. Right? They got goalied in game 1. They were the better team. They probably should have won game 1. They dominated the game. Florida got a couple of goals early, and Sergei Bobrovsky stood on his head. Game 3, they just ran out of time, but the poor start, the poor second period where they gave up 2 goals in 94 seconds kind of just threw everything into a mix because it was a 2-1 hockey game. They were playing well. They just ran out of time. I think there'll be some questions like that, but more questions will be on the Florida side of it. Be like, how come you guys can't close this out? You've had opportunities before. How come you haven't been able to cross this finish line? We're now here at a game 7. Again, we have to get there. We don't know what's going to happen tonight. That's why they play the game. But if the Oilers figure out a way to win game 6, now the questions are going to be, well, how come you guys couldn't close it out? What's different now? What's changed? And there'll be questions if Bobrovsky lets up another 5 spot about, is he fatigued? Is he tired? Did he finally run out of gas? There'll be a lot of questions on that Florida side because the Oilers are now going to be playing with house money still. They'll still play with house money, right? Because, okay, they got the game 7. If they still lose, everybody still expected them to lose. But if they win the cup, oh boy, then there's going to be a lot of questions on that Florida side.
There'll be a lot of forever questions. Now I go back to this because it happened in a sort of less dramatic form. Slightly older. Well, let's see. He was about the same age as Bobrovsky is now. Anybody remember the magical run of Marc-Andre Fleury and the Vegas Misfits?
Yes.
Yeah.
People forget that he had like a goal saved above average that was 1 goal above per game going into the Stanley Cup final against Washington. And then literally like in about 1 period, it just went up in smoke. And kind of the same thing, obviously Washington just didn't necessarily steamroll Vegas, but it was like the feeling of inevitability where it's like, you knew, okay, Washington's going to win this. It kind of feels like that with Bobrovsky a little bit. Washington figured out Fleury only because Washington played Fleury so many darn times. It was bound to happen. This is a little bit different, but if you watched the last, say, 2 1/3 games, it is clear that Connor McDavid especially figured something out very late in game 3. There was a shot maybe about 2 minutes ago in game 3 where McDavid's looking on the bench and he's pointing at Bobrovsky. You could see it. It's during one of the. It's like getting the telecom feed and smiling because you're getting extra footage that you wouldn't see normally. Somebody screwed up. Either way, that part doesn't matter. The part that matters is he saw something with Bobrovsky's movement, especially laterally. Not that Bobrovsky's injured. It's just certain tendencies that he picks up on that probably no player other than, say, Gretzky would pick up on. And we saw it in the one goal where, let's face it, McDavid intended a shot pass.
Yeah.
We'll just call it for what it is. But he saw Bobrovsky moving kind of in a way that's like, something could happen if I just throw it to the net. It happens to catch under Bobrovsky's skate and it trickles in. I mean, those are the kind of plays that you do not, well, actually you do see. We saw that with Sidney Crosby in a couple of Pittsburgh's runs. But that's the kind of cerebral moment right at that time on the ice that you don't get from many players. Maybe I could count on 2 hands in my life that I've seen that can do that. And it spread to the other Oilers aside from Leon Draisaitl, who has about 15 million injuries right now. Let's see, hand, wrist, leg, groin, and something in the middle that seems to be keeping him from moving laterally. I don't know. Either way, there's at least 3 that we know of. But it doesn't matter. You have a generational talent that is. Look, the first 3 games, yeah, maybe you could question Edmonton a little, but it's like a coming of age drama. So for our female listeners out there who love rom-coms and all this fun, all the fun stuff, we have something for you too. Basically, this is like the coming of age story of a player who realizes, hey, I can do this. Not only can I do this, but I'm going to show everybody I can do this. And I'm going to do it in the most dramatic way possible. So maybe it took a little longer than we thought. And especially if this goes 7. Yeah, the questions are going to be so many for Paul Maurice. Look, I want to be a fly in the wall for that press conference.
Well, and that's something I was talking to Jimmy with yesterday privately. If Florida does lose this, holy cow. I mean, what do you do?
I don't know.
I mean, do you blow it up? I mean, they blew it up once after a loss to Tampa Bay in the playoffs. That's why Andrew Burnett's not there anymore, and they made the trade for Matthew Tkachuk and sent out Jonathan Huberdeau, and they made all that fun trade. But now the bigger question is going to be like, well, how come we couldn't close it out? Like, what happened? And look, we've seen it, right? 2 times now. Like, we didn't see it for a long time in the playoffs. We saw it twice in 4 years. Everybody forgets this. Earlier in the playoffs, 2010, Philly came back 3-0 deficit against Boston. The LA Kings did it in their second cup run against, I believe, the Sharks. So it's not impossible anymore. It's just a tall hill to climb because you need things to go right for you in 4 straight games. Stuart Skinner's going to have to play well. First 5 to 10 minutes of this hockey game, Florida's going to come out and try to do what they did at the end of game 5. They're going to try to pin the Oilers back, keep things, but they can't give up a shorthanded goal. They can't take stupid penalties because the Oiler power play is starting to click. Bouchard's starting to hit his shot now. He's not missing the net anymore. The Oilers are starting to move the puck a lot quicker now on that power play, and they've made subtle adjustments on that power play. So for me, look, I have a feeling Game 7's happening. I know a lot of people want it over tonight. I just don't know if Edmonton's ready to call it quits yet.
In a word? No. Let's see. What will I put up? Basically 13 of Well, no, actually, oh no, 18 of 20 experts. Yeah, Edmonton.
Yeah.
Here you go. 14 of them have Edmonton covering the puck line. So that's an unusually high number. Edmonton scoring 4 goals or more out of the 20 experts. 14 again. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 15. Darn, slide rule abacus gets screwed up here and there, but it's simply put, there's a lot of numbers stacked in Edmonton's favor and not a lot stacked in Florida. We said it's going to take some kind of Herculean performance by Matthew Tkachuk. He's going to have to, and he started to wake up in game 5. So, maybe it's their only chance, really. I mean, he has to unleash the sternum.
He does, right? And again, Edmonton's playing so well. Florida, again, the big thing, Bruce, is the momentum that they built in the period 3 of game 5. If they can carry that over, maybe we see the Florida team we saw in the first 3 games of the series.
For folks that haven't been to the Edmonton rink, the noise tonight and the atmosphere is going to be a seismic in terms of noise. I for the Panthers' sake, they've got to hope that, as you alluded to a few minutes ago, guys, that it's a goal or it's tied or something like that, because I've been to a couple of games there and it's going to be loud, and Florida has got to keep this close for the first 10 minutes or you're going back to Florida for a game 7. I've tried to be objective because, like you said, they did do some good things at the end of game 5. They generated some offense. They kind of calmed things down a little bit, but the way Connor McDavid is playing, I definitely see this going back to Florida for a game 7.
And the consensus here is, I think we can all agree on that. Guys, game 6 goes tonight. Stanley Cup final, Edmonton Oilers. Let's see if we have a tied series or game 7. Maybe the cup gets lifted. Who knows? Stay tuned, find out. You've been watching the best damn pregame show around for the Stanley Cup final. Full Press Hockey Weekly Show. Get this up here at Full Press Hockey Podcast on YouTube, at Full Press NHL on Twitter, Spitballing Sports as well. Jim Biringer, Bruce Zeman, Chris Wassel. Guys, enjoy the game tonight. Maybe we'll be back for game 7. You never know. Take care.
Barry Trotz, Nashville Predators, making sure you're listening to Full Press Hockey